Hi guys, I know it's been a while, but it's been a crazy year. And to be honest, I was enjoying taking the summer off. Actually, it was a bit too hot to do anything but lay around. So now that fall's coming, it's time to get back to some work. I wanted to share a little pattern tutorial. I'm not sure what to call it. In the summertime at our quilting retreat, I made these bags. I'm calling them round rice bags because to me they're a combination of a bucket bag and a rice bag. They don't cinch at the top like a bucket bag, which you could probably do to this. Instead, they have the tabs on top like the traditional rice bags, but they're round instead of square. I had made a rice bag in the summertime, and I thoroughly loved it and went crazy making these round versions for myself because I wanted to use up this fabric that I had made last fall. And since when I posted pictures in social media and Facebook and everywhere, I got a positive response. Thank you, everyone. That was nice. And a lot asked for a pattern. But this is really simple, and I wouldn't feel right charging for such a simple pattern. So I thought I would do it this way. Down in the information area, you will find a link on how to download the pattern, or I should say the pieces. It will have cutting charts for all 4 sizes. There are no pattern pieces for the exterior fabric. It's done by measurements because it's all rectangles, and I refuse to draw rectangles on paper. You have all, like I said, all 4 sizes, a very short point-wise instruction sheet, and the one thing you will have to print out is the templates. This is you get a pattern for for the bases, the bottoms of the bag, so that they will fit into the measurement. I wasn't that mean. So I opened up a KoFi shop because that's one of the few places I can upload a pattern for free. If I put in my Facebook group, only my Facebook group members can get it. And not everyone's in Facebook nowadays, but everyone's in YouTube, I guess. Also, I don't have, if I put in my Etsy shop, I have to charge money, and I refuse to charge money for something this simple. And I don't have a fancy website to put it up for free. Don't have the time or the money to make one. So we're going to try it this way. I hope this works. So you'll find the link to the KoFi site. It will say free or 0 or something like that. This is my first time, so you got to bear with me. Put in a 0 because it's most likely will ask you for an amount. Put in 0, and because this is a free pattern. And then download it to the size of paper you need. I will have US letter and A4. Okay, so there you will find, so we have the 4 sizes. This one is, I'm calling too cute because it is just so cute. This is adorable. This is just right because this was the size that's just right for me. And this is the kitchen sink because it's big enough to fit in the kitchen sink. So those are the 4 sizes you're getting. Also, I will be showing you a basic how I made this version with all the patch pieces. There is no pattern piece instruction. This is a free form, but I will talk a little bit, like always. And then at the very end, I will also show you, if you stick around that long, how to make these adorable, I hope you can see them, tulip ends for the drawstrings. Those are optional. They're not necessary. So I think that covers it all. So if you're interested, click on the links to get your stuff. Oh, I will try to put timestamps in so that you can skip certain sections that are of no interest to you, because I will be showing how to quilt and things like that. So enough of my babbling, and it's time to get sewing. Let's get on to the good part. Let's get sewing. You're going to need a few things. First off, you're going to have print off the size you like. I printed all the sizes and then I glued them to some old cardboard so I could use them over and over, and then I keep them all like on a ring because I think you're going to be making more than one of these bags. On the pattern pieces, it tells you what pieces you need to cut from that, and there are notches. The holes here, those are just to go on my ring, not that you need to put a hole in there. And then here also shows you that you cut your batting or Decoville light to that line. We're going to make the size of the rice bag. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to be doing it with one fabric only. So I chose the adorable size because it is 8 3/4 high and about 7.5 deep. So this way I can get it in the camera zone better than a bigger one. Okay, so you're going to need your exterior fabric. You can do this with one fabric. You can do it piecing, or you can take, as long as you stay within the measurements, you can piece all kinds, like a crazy quilt idea, like I did on the yellow and blue one, and really have a lot of fun with it. Use up old quilting blocks or embroidery blocks, whatever you have. This is supposed to be a Stash Buster quick, easy project. So we have our exterior fabric. Interface your fabrics. In this case, mine aren't, because I tend to sew with a lot of decorated fabrics for a couple reasons. I like the texture and the look of them, and it saves me from interfacing them. So I have my exterior fabric, and then you need a batting, or I'm going to use a headliner here. You need something to give the bag a bit of shape, unless if you want it really softer. Then I would say just use a good medium weight interfacing to strengthen it up. I tend to use G700. Oh, what's the American version of that? I will put that also in information because it's not coming to me. Or I'll try to put it on the screen if I figure that out. Okay, so you're going to need some cords, the length that's listed on the list. And you're going to need some webbing. That's for the tabs here on top. On these bags, I used leather strips to make the tabbing. You can use leather. If you don't like webbing, then I would suggest making a tube of accent colored fabric, double the width plus the seam allowance, and turning it to make your little tabs up here. There's a few ways of doing this. If I wrote and explained every single way, we'd be here till tomorrow, which we might be anyways. But anyway, so as you see here, I used leather strips, and I cut them the measurements listed on the list, on the cutting list, for the size that I'm working on. But for ease, I'm going to be using webbing today. Also, for the closure, for the small ones, I found one cord was enough. If you want to use two, that's fine, but I'll show you on both. This, for the one cord, you can use a bead as a stopper. They also, as long as the hole's big enough to fit the cords through, or you can use a piece of leather strap, and then you wrap it around and you stitch it here for the closure, for a pull, for a stopper. Okay. Let's see what else. So we have our exterior fabric with the batting. We have the lining fabric with the interfacing ironed on. Mine doesn't have it, but we're going to pretend it does. Since this is a thicker decorator fabric, I don't need it. We have the lining bottom, which would also be interfaced. We have the exterior bottom. And for the exterior bottom, since I want it to have a little more stability, I am going to put my foam or headliner, in this case, down, and then I suggest a Decoville or a piece of Thermalon. And as you will see on the pattern, I have you cut it smaller so that all this bulk doesn't go into the seam allowance. And I found it easiest just to cut it the exact same size. This way I didn't have to make another pattern piece. I fold my circle in half, then in half again, I will clip it to hold it together. If it's not super thick, and if you can do it, fold it again. Okay, now we've clipped it. And with my scissors, this does not have to be exact. This is to add some stability. And now I'm going to trim off this measurement. It is a large, a fat 1/4 inch, or a skinny 3/8, whichever you wish to call it. See, I just trimmed that off. And that's close enough. It's just to add a little more oomph to your base, because I want it to have, yes, I'm trimming off a few little pointy edges. So now we have this. Okay, so that's basically all you need as far as fabrics go. Okay, let's start with the base. We have the exterior. We have the either iron-on batting, or in my case headliner, and the Decoville or Thermalon. Now I will fold my base in half, make a crease. Also, if you didn't make the notches from the pattern, I make little notches so that things will line up easier for me. And now on that line, where that crease, I will draw a chalk line from notch to notch. This is if you're quilting it. I like to quilt the base. As you can see here, I find it gives it more stability, and it looks really nice. So now I'm going to draw a chalk line. Should have gone straight. And then I'll match those notches up together. Make another crease. Oops, another little notch. And now here, I just eyeball it. I'm going to draw a line in the middle of each section. I'm doing like a 8 pie. Ta-da. Now I will take and either fuse my batting to the center of this, or I will spray baste it. But since I don't have spray baste here, I'm using a little glue stick. And I'm going to glue. This is just for temporary hold. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Oh, wow, that one's wonky there. Trim that off. And then I'm going to take my Thermalon and place it on top. And voila. And now you can add pins if you want, but this is holding well enough for me to go to my machine. Magic videos, we're at this sewing machine. I'm going to take my base piece and I'm going to quilt on these lines. All quilting is straight stitching. This kind of quilting is straight stitching through multi-layers of fabric, which in my case is the batting and the foam and the Thermalon. Okay, so I changed my stitch length to a 4 or 4.5 because I prefer a long one. You don't need them super tight. This is just to hold the layers. This is not part of the construction. So, oops, it helps if you thread your machine correctly. Okay. And I will keep doing this until all of the lines are quilted. I've speeded up the film, not that you think I sew this fast. Ta-da! The base is quilted. Now we can put that aside. I'm going to take my exterior piece, and since I'm going to quilt this, I decided I'm going to show you how I actually do it. I always, when quilting something, I always cut it a little bigger than the measurements on the pattern, because a lot of times it'll shrink depending on how much I'm quilting. So I take my fabric, and what I'm going to do is and I have my headliner here, or your batting, but first I'm going to make a crease in the middle, so I know approximately where my middle is. Then I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to draw a light chalk line. Use chalk that you can brush away later. Let's see, can you even see that chalk line? Yeah, you can see the chalk line. I'm going to do a 45-degree checkered pattern. So on your ruler, there's always, I don't know if you can see it on this one, there's different lines, 30-degree, 45-degree, and 60-degree. So I take my ruler. Okay, this one's a little short. Wait, let me get the big one. Okay, so I'm going to take my ruler, and as you can see, it has the lines here, 45. Oh, these are all 45. Okay, no wonder I use this one a lot. So now I'm going to place my ruler on the 45 line, and I'm going to move it over. Here's also, I have a 45. I'm going to line up my bottom edge and this 45. Do you see that? And this bottom edge. And that will give me a 45-degree angle. And I'm going to draw a chalk line. If you have a walking foot, I highly recommend using it if you're quilting things. If you don't, you can buy them for your machine. Yes, they're a little pricey, but if you want to do a bunch of quilting on items, which I find makes a huge difference. It takes something so simple. You will see how this simple blue fabric will look really cool when it's quilted, and it does not take a lot of time. So I use my quilting foot. They come with this little arm thing, and there's usually a hole somewhere for you to stick it in. And then you can adjust the distance from your needle to this arm, and that's where it's really cool. So with a walking foot, I only have to mark one line. I mark the one in this direction, and I will do the same thing, flip my ruler, and I will mark the first line, or a line, this in my case is the first line. I will mark it in the opposite direction. So this way, when I quilt one way and then come back the other. So there I have the two lines I need. And now I'm going to go to the machine, and I'm going to stitch first along this line. And I'm going to show you how to quilt the whole thing. Now I'm going to quilt the exterior. So on my walking foot, I have to attach the little arm, which I'm going to do, but I'll just leave it out of the way for a minute. First thing I'm going to do is sew right on that first chalk line I did. Okay, now I quilt on in the other direction, the line I had. Okay. And now here comes your decision-making time. Depending on the size of the bag, I decide how wide I want my quilt lines. And on this one, since this is pretty small, well, and I want to get done today, I'm going to do them 1.5 inches apart. So from the first line I quilted, I'm going to make just a mark. I'm placing 1.5 inch line here, and I'm going to just make a little mark so I know that's the distance. And now I'm going to put my quilting foot back on the line I sewed, and I'm going to lower this arm, and I'm going to adjust it to match up to that line. There. If you don't have a quilting foot and an arm, you're going to have to draw all your lines. This is one of the benefits of this. Now I know this line will match up as long as I place this arm on the stitch line, I will always have 1.5 inch distance. So I'm going to go over to this side since the arm is on the right hand side. And you see now I'm placing the arm here on that line, and I'm just going to stitch. And I just watch, you keep your eye, don't watch the foot and the needle. It's going to do what it's going to do. Keep your eye on this arm, that you keep it in that groove. Repeat until the whole thing is quilted. And to quilt this side, I can move my arm from right to left. So now I would line up where I made my chalk line, and I adjust my arm to go to the previous stitch line. And that's how I will stitch these ones. Okay, I'm going to keep quilting this, and I'm going to come back with the finished piece. Grab yourself a coffee, and I'll be right back. Okay, my exterior piece is all quilted and cut to size. I trimmed it down since, as I said, I made it a little bigger than what the pattern called for. So when it shrunk from the quilting process. So now we're going to want to add our tabs to the top edge of the bag. So you need a long ruler or a tape measure, anything, and you're going to take your webbing or your leather strips, whatever you've decided for the tabs along the top. You're going to take the cutting list chart, and you're going to cut the tabs to the length stated here. It says to cut this piece into 6 pieces, 3 inches long. I have used 6 tabs. You can use 4, you can use 5, but my measurements are based on 6, so it's up to you. Okay, so and then you're going to see down here, I did a chart of how far apart. See if you can see that. You don't have to screenshot this, just download the pattern, it's all there. How far apart the tabs have to be placed so that it's even, okay? So we're going to start here, and this will be my top edge. And the first measurement on this one says 3 3/4, and so I go and I draw a chalk line, or better still, since I can't see it here so well, I'm going to draw, why is this so crooked? I'm going to put a pin in 3 3/4, the next measurement at 7 1/2, and so on. Now I'm going to take my webbing, and I'm going to cut it to the measurement stated in the pattern, and on this one it happens to be every 3 inches. So I could probably just as easy, might be easier, just make marks. And 15. Now I cut them all apart. If you're using the polyester webbing, you have to use a lighter to singe the ends so that they melt, because you don't want them raveling. So do this. Now I'm going to take them and fold them in half. And the raw edges, I need some clips. I'm going to take the raw edges and match them up so the loop's facing down. And where the mark or your pin is, you're going to place this tab centered right over that pin. You see that? And You can pin it, but these are so thick. I wanted the cotton ones, but my local fabric store didn't have cotton. They only had this tough polyester, so we'll see how this works. You see, I place it, fold them in half, and clip it right over these where I had made the marks. And you're going to do this for 5 of them. You're going to have one left over, and that one will be attached once the side seam's sewn up, because that's going to go right over the side seam. Next one. Okay, now I'm going to sew that. Okay, now I'm at my machine. I changed my foot to a normal 1/4 inch foot. Took off the walking foot, but you can leave it on if you want. Now I'm going to baste these tabs in place. Okay, we've got them on. And now I'm going to clip the sides together, the short ends, and I'm going to stitch with a 1/4 inch all the way down. You could trim away some of this batting if you like, and I'm going to press this seam flat open. Now I'm going to take the last tab, fold it in half, and I'm going to place it right over that side seam. Clip it, and I'm going to baste it in place. Okay, now that's basically done. Now we're going to just set our bottom. Just move the machine out of the way for a second so you can see better. Now we're going to take, since this is still flat, I'm going to snip a notch here. I'm going to match up the side seam and that center notch I just did, and I'm going to do one on each fold edge. That gives me 4 notches to match up to the 4 notches I have here. So I'm going to take my base, and I'm going to take any notch, and I'm going to line it up to here, clip it in place, and now I'm going to take the opposite end of that notch and line it up to the center notch. I find this extra little, and now I'm going to do the same for the other 4 notches. I find this helps me set the bottom more even. So if ever on a pattern something isn't fitting or sitting right, do the 4 notches. This way you spread the excess or the mistake evenly everywhere, not in just one spot. So I find I can get it to sit nicer if I clip from this side than from the inside. I pull this up and I match it up with the circle's edge, the base's edge. See here? I can, and in a way I'm pushing the base down, and I just, oops, keep clipping all around. Okay, so I have the base clipped in. Now I'm going to sew it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I find it's easiest if my base is down against the bed and I sew from this side. Maybe it works better the other way for you. Let me know. Okay, bring my machine back in so you can see what I'm doing. And here we go. And I will use an awl to help move and pull and push any fabric that's required. Oops. Now I'm going to turn and check that everything is sitting nicely, because sometimes I fall off the edge like a drunken sailor or something. Get rid of all these little threads. Okay, let's see if I got a fold in anywhere. Oh, wow, a lot of threads though. Okay, there you go. Bottom is set. There's the bucket part. Now we just have to put the lining in. Take your lining piece and fold it right sides together, matching up the short ends. And now you're going to make a mark here where your top edge is, especially if you have directional, and so you don't get mixed up later. And on the cutting chart I gave you, you will see here it says taper. In case you're wondering what that is for this step here. To make the linings fit, we need to taper the lining a bit so it won't be baggy. You know I hate baggy bottoms, so I have calculated or trialed and errored to get it to fit. So on this one it says 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to take my ruler, lay it down on 3/4 of an inch here, and I'm going to make a little mark. Zoom in a bit. Okay, you can see that better. I've made a 3/4 inch mark. By folding the fabrics together, it means I only have to cut through once. Now I'm going to take my ruler, and where the top is, I'm going to line it right up to that edge, and down here I'm going to line up where that mark is. And that section I'm going to cut off. And on every size of bag, it's a different measurement. Don't ask me why. I don't understand the crazy math behind it, but this is what came out from my trial and error. So now you have this. Now you're going to go to the machine, and I'm going to sew here. You can do a mark so you don't forget, like I tend to. And I'm going to sew this side seam together using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Leave this opening, because that's what we're leaving opening, at least good 3 to 4 inches depending on the bag, so that we can turn the bag later. Okay, gonna sew that. Okay, now we're gonna stitch the lining. Back stitch so that for our opening. Okay. We had pressed the side seam on the lining, and we're going to do the same procedure. Remember where I had you mark the top? Because you will notice, you may get confused and try to set the base in the top, and if it's too wide, then you know you've got it wrong. It happened to me. Okay, here, again, a little clip. match up the sides, the center and the side seam, clip and clip. Okay, same procedure as with the top. Take my 4 clips, notches, and placing it right sides together, match them up with the lining in this case. I'll speed this up so you don't have to watch me do 20 clips. Now we're going to take the lining piece. I like to do it with the exterior turned wrong side out, and then the lining right side in. Don't ask me why. I think I forgot to add the top 4 clips, and I would do the same on the lining. Now take your lining piece, place it in here. The side seam should not match up with this one. It should be opposite on that center tab. And we're going to put it here. And take the center notch and put it where the side seam is. And clip all the round. Now we're going to stitch all around the top edge. You don't have to leave anything open because you have an opening in the side seam. And if you forgot an opening in the side seams, now a good time to put it in. So since I have basically a flatbed machine, I can't slide it over and top stitch like you like you can. So I have to do it like on the inside, like a hamster wheel. So here I go. Now I'm going to use a normal stitch length. I tend to sew everything with 3 stitch length. I find 2.5 too small, because if you have to rip something, that's whoa. Check and see if you stitch nice and straight. Typically, my first row is a bit wonky, so I always go around a second time, because now I don't have to worry about holding things together. I can just concentrate on stitching straight, which is one of the hardest things to do. Okay, and move this out of the way so I don't have to move the camera. And now we're going to turn the bag through that hole you left. And if you were like me and made the hole too small, you're going to do a bit of puffing and huffing. Don't try to push it all through. Just go bit by bit. Yeah, I should have left it a little bigger. But like most of you, I hate sewing the opening closed, so I make it as small as possible. And then I have to pay for it. Yay, there we go. Almost there. Ta-da. Now I have to stick my hand in here. Push everything out. Take my lining piece. For those that are really want it quick, you can machine stitch this opening, or you can hand stitch it. That I'll leave up to you. Okay, now I tuck it all in there. Oops, loose threads. Where did you guys all come from? Now I'm going to carefully press this top edge. So, and careful not to burn these because they will melt from the iron. Or when I use leather, I did melt them too. So I'll be right back. Okay, ta-da. The top edge is pressed, but I still like to, because my fabrics are quite thick and with all the batting, I still will put a clip, or if I can, I pull down the lining fabric so it's nice and taut, and then I will, if I can, and I'll pin through all the layers. This way I don't have clips and pins in my way as I'm top stitching. And I continue. Take that one out of the way because I like the pinning with needles. And there we go. Okay, let's go back to the machine. And we're almost done. But don't click off yet because I'm going to show you how to add the cording to it. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to show you how to make those cute little tulip ends. Okay, so now top stitching. Here I lengthen my stitch length. And where's my side stitch? I always start there. See, once again, because I'm on the flatbed machine, I can't do like a lot of use with free arms. So I have to turn it inside out, and I have to top stitch from the inside. It works the best for me. Okay, so I do pull my bottom thread up, and this way I don't get that bird's nest in the back. And then lengthen my stitch length to about somewhere between 3.5 and 4, and off we go. I'm doing approximately a 1/4 inch top stitching. Some people like an 1/8. It's up to you. There's no bag police and there's no real right or wrong. Ta-da! Trim any threads. I usually like to give my bag or whatever I'm sewing a good press. Well, first take out the pins. That's the first thing, because these are very sharp and they will hurt. Okay, the bag is done. There we go. Now we just have to add the cord. Like I mentioned, you can do 1 or 2 drawstring cords depending on the size. The big ones I definitely put 2 in. For the smaller ones I find 1's enough, but I will show you how to thread it both ways. Okay, now on your bag you have a back side exterior side seam that we're going to call the back. Put a clip there. Now in it I've made a really short point form instructions. Here is the back seam, and here's what's considered the front of your bag. So if that's the front, we want to put, if you're using 2 drawstrings, you want them coming from the sides. So you would start, here, let me get my cord and a bobbin. And I start here. And whether you start right or left doesn't matter. Between these 2 and between these 2. Between number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And now you weave it all the way around. I'm using 2 different cords so maybe you can see it a little better. And there. And now you can decide whether you wish to knot This if you're doing a single one, or if you wish to attach a bead or a stopper. But just for the video easy access, we're going to put a knot in it. And there. And as you see, you just have to pull. We need the stopper there, and your bag pulls shut. Now, if we want the other cord, let's go back here. This was where, this was the back seam, this is the front, this was our side. Now we're going to take the second cord and we're going to weave from the opposite side. So we're going to be coming in from taps 5 and 6, I guess. We'll make this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we weave all the way around. Got one coming around this way and one coming around this way. Opposite ends. Now I'm going to knot this end. This cording is way too thick for a bead. Well, there you go. That's your round rice bag. I hope you enjoyed that. But before you go, I want to also show you in the instructions, I give you measurements how to make the two-tone versions that I showed you at the beginning of the video. It will say for accent bottom versions, I've listed measurements, what you're to cut the top and the bottom at. Then you would sew them together. Obviously, we've all done this kind of effect, quilted, and continue sewing the rest of the bag as per the video. That's the two-tone version. This is, okay, I could have picked a nicer fabric for the video, but this is to give you an idea how it's sewn. I wanted something that would show up on the camera. And then we have this one, which is, this one was really fun to do. This was, as you can see, there is no pattern. There's no measurements. This was just a free form one. I had made the traditional square rice bag, and I had so much fun doing it. I thought, let's try it on the round version. So, as you see, I took the measurement of the bag. That's I cut it to the background fabric. I cut to the measurement in the cutting chart of the size I want. In this case, it's the just right one, and then I laid a piece of cotton batting down, and I used, to make my life easier, I used this yellow fabric. I used the fabric, it doesn't have to be yellow, and laid it on top of the cotton batting, and I just basted around the outer edges. And then I grabbed my scrap box, and I looked for which fabrics talked to me. And this fabric was the whole inspiration for this bag, because it was a scrap I really liked. Normally, I'm not a blue and yellow person, but as you see, it developed. So in my scrap box, this came out first, and then I looked for some blue, I had some linen, I looked for some yellows, some creams, and I grabbed all these scraps. As you see, I use everything. This is an actual dental fabric, I believe, and this was, God knows where this is from. This is a curtain fabric, I think. And I just cut the pieces, or some of the scraps were just the size they were, and I just laid them out what I thought would look pleasant, leaving some airspace. And that's where the yellow background was nice. I didn't feel I had to piece everything. And with a glue stick, I just kind of lightly glued it all to the background to just to keep it in place. And then once I was satisfied with the layout, because it's a big long piece at this point, I just basted with the machine all around each piece with matching thread so you didn't see it. And then when I had time later, when I'd be watching TV, whatever, I took embroidery flosses and I embroidered to accent certain areas. It's not necessary, but I did that because I enjoy doing that, and I find it gives it a real bing. And then I looked for buttons that would be cool. We all have a button box or jar, and I found buttons that it's either one or they'd never be used for anything else, and they work perfect on you. And just so you know, these little tags, this is all rubber stamps stamped on linen. I have rubber stamps, and I used Claire Versify black ink, a Nocturne I think it's called, and I just stamped directly on the linen. It's a permanent ink, so if I ever need to wash it, it should hold. I doubt I'll ever wash this kind of a bag because of all the raw edges, but that's how I created these little accent pieces. I created my own fabric, so to say. And that's it. Then I continue to sew it as in the video. And in this one, I did add a pocket. But I decided after doing that, it's not really necessary in these bags for me, because I use this kind of a bag to throw everything in. I doubt I'll organize stuff in there. But if you want pockets on the inside, go ahead, add them. This video and tutorial is just to get you started and to spark some of your creative ideas. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned it. And here, the tabs were made with fabric that I used in the bag. I just cut it, double the width plus the seam allowance, sewed it right sides together, turned it inside out like a long tube, like you do a strap, and then I top stitch it and cut them the lengths I wanted. That's also an option. You can also do your cording with fabric. It does not have to be store-bought cording. And to this bag, I added these adorable tulip ends, which I'm going to show you right after this. So if you're interested, stick around. If not, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you make your own bags. And until next time, choose. Okay, let's make these adorable, I'm calling them tulip ends, for your drawstring bags. All you're going to need is 2 squares of cotton fabric, 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. I would not recommend using thick decorator fabric or even interfacing this. You want to keep this soft and pliable. Now you're going to take each square and you're going to fold in half right sides together, and you're going to stitch 1/4 inch seam allowance. And now this is where it gets a little finicky. I finger press this down, and now you're going to want to fold this right sides together, or wrong sides together, sorry, because you want to turn it. I'm thinking, so you want to turn it to create, yeah, it's a little weird, but actually it's better than you think. Now here, I'm almost there, so that it's folded in half. As you see, now the right sides are out on both sides, and we want this raw edges to match up, and there you go. You've got like a little tube, cannelloni. I guess I must be hungry, it's lunchtime. And then I'm using a contrasting color thread so that you can see better. Let's see, zoom it in a bit. And now along this raw edge, I'm going to do a running stitch, baste it, whatever you want to call it, to gather it up. So you don't want them super tight, like super close, because I find when you make really tiny running gathering stitches, it doesn't gather so well. Why do things always take twice as long when you're trying to do it in front of a camera? Okay, now I'm at this point. Do not cut off your thread. And what I do now, slide it onto the cord. The folded edge goes inward towards the bag, and the raw edge is by the knot. And now, when you're there, you're going to pull this tight. So it actually now looks like a little doll person. And here, now I'm going to knot it off, knotted this. And now where is it? Oh, here. Where the side seam was, I do not cut this. Don't cut it. Now you take your thread, and where that seam was, what I do to avoid having to have a lot of knots, I do a running stitch down the, just through this, oops, just a quick running stitch through the one side. You can feel it. I don't feel the needle on the other side. But if it's a matching thread color, even if you did, it wouldn't matter. Now, approximately, I don't know, depends on how big you want your nib there. Let's say a 1/4 inch. So approximately 1/4 inch, oops, from the fold, I'll poke through to the other side. Okay, I hope this isn't confusing. Now I'm going to take this little cannelloni and pull it around the knot. And that's why 3.5 inches is a good size. If you go smaller, you're really looking for fussy and maybe a few unladylike words. Now we have a bell. Technically, you could leave it like that. Of course, cut off your thread and you have like a bell finish. But since I want to encase the whole thing, what I've done, if you want it more puffier and your knot's not thick enough, you can add a little cotton wadding in there. But I found most times I don't need to. Now I will do the running stitch again, a 1/4 inch from the folded edge. I should have taken a little shorter thread. German, we have a saying, langes Fädchen, faules Mädchen, and it means long thread, lazy girl. It sounds much better in German. Oma used to always say that to me. Okay, once I come to the end, I just pull and it closes up. Look, that the tulip end looks pretty, closes it up, and then I just knot it off. I do it. And then I pull it to, take my thread to the inside, and I trim it off in there. And voila, there we go. We have a little tulip. Doesn't that look like a little strawberry now on the back? I think it's adorable. Now repeat on the other side. So that's it. Wasn't that easy? I hope you enjoyed that, and until next time, tschüss.